Y'all, we live in difficult times. There's war, political unrest, the pandemic, poverty, families being torn, communities ripped by gun violence and people dying every day, police, injustice. It's all bringing so much pain. But y'all, we can look inside our minds and we can understand who we are, become better, and do this thing like we've never done it before. But it all starts with our mental health, and I know we can do it. I believe in you because I believe in me, and I believe in us. Welcome and thank you for joining in for another episode of Therapy is Life, where thinking, feeling, and experiencing well-being is what we do. Today, in this first episode, we're going to talk about agreeability. You know, the idea of being flexible. And by the way, hint, hint, y'all don't have to let the vampires in.
Shameless plug on that, Sinners. You know, hey, they gonna have to watch for up and coming episodes.
Yeah,
to talk about that.
We're gonna talk about some Sinners upcoming. Maybe touch on it just a little bit today, but right now we gonna talk about agreeability. We're gonna talk about conscientiousness. Try to knock those two out over the next couple episodes, cause this is so important. In fact, we would argue that these are critical to healthy relationships, whether it be friends or romantic relationships. Our ability to be agreeable and open, as we talked in the last episode. But how you doing today, Mo?
I'm blessed, man. Blessed and highly favored. Just picked up my daughter from college, man. First semester done with college, first full school year, and man, that's an accomplishment within itself, man. You know, so feeling highly favored, man. Me and my wife just celebrated 22 years of being together. Boyfriend and girlfriend. I asked her to be my girlfriend 22 years ago yesterday, man. So I'm just feeling blessed, man. You know, the creators kept us around, and you know, we just here to inspire, as you say, right?
So with that being said, look, dude, I'm curious. You've been with your wife for a total of 22 years?
22 years, yeah. Boyfriend and girlfriend, man. Married 16, but yeah, we've been together since '03.
Oh, you know what, man? I think I'll start right there. This wasn't intentional, you know, like Maurice ain't here today, and
We miss my bruh.
yeah, I miss him too, man. And
I seen him at that Cavs game yesterday, though. He might be a little in his feelings still, man, about that loss last night. But yeah,
Oh, you was at the Cavs game?
he was there. I seen on his IG, man. He went to the game last night. Yeah.
Oh, he was at the game, yes, man.
We ain't gonna talk about that.
We don't want to talk about that. Man, I thought they just didn't show up, man. They was still playing Miami. They just didn't show up.
We miss Garland, man. So hopefully Garland heal up, bro. We need you, man, for the rest of these playoffs, bro.
Yeah.
Get them feet together, bro.
Get them feet together, man. Because he is a shifty, explosive kind of person. So he has to, you know, be able to do that. So I'm curious, man, if just starting out, thinking about agreeableness, man, and what it means. Obviously, when we think about it, we think about the idea of being flexible. And so I want to ask you this question. What would you say about agreeableness and how it's played out in your relationship?
Agreeableness. I mean, it started off rocky because, you know, growing up, and you speaking specifically for me and my wife's relationship, I mean, it's like, you know, well, I let me refrain it from saying it started off rocky. It didn't start off rocky. It started off great because we started off as friends. So our ability to agree on different things and find common ground was what sparked the relationship, right? You know, us being able to see things that we had in common, and being able to enjoy music, food, and just certain things, sports. So certain things that we found to be agreeable was the foundation actually of our relationship. But as they say, after the honeymoon stages is over and you start to learn about what you're not agreeing on, that's when we had to figure out how to get through those stages.
Yeah.
How as they say, how to agree to disagree.
Mm.
And learn to be able to be okay with, that's your opinion, this is my opinion. Let's not try to force each other to agree, because that's where it seemed like that was the biggest challenge. Where, I'm trying to force my ideas onto her and vice versa. I mean, and to this day, we learn that there comes a space and time where it's like we can agree on things and it's all peachy key. But if we're not seeing eye to eye on something, then maybe that might be a topic that we might have to put on the shelf. Might have to revisit it in counseling if it's that deep, But if it isn't that deep, it might just have to be another space and time in general where we can not be in high emotion and then talk about that situation.
Right. You know what? I love what you're saying, because what I think to myself is when I hear you say being agreeable to disagree, that goes back to our last episode about being open and being that lifelong learner, right? So there were things you guys agreed about, but then as you got to know each other, you realized there were things you didn't agree about. And I think one of the things about agreeable is not just that you agree with everything. No, it's more about cooperation and being able to negotiate, having that ability to be open to negotiation around things. And then I think another key word to that is being able to be empathetic to this person's feelings. Even though you don't agree with them, you can empathize with where they're coming from. Try to walk in their shoes. One of the things I try to ask people to do in therapy oftentimes is try to listen to your partner and try to understand like what their daily life experience is, and try to put yourself in their shoes and really try to see it from their perspective, their day. Don't just hear somebody saying to you how their day was, but try to actually visualize yourself in their shoes. Because I think that helps reinforce empathy and the ability to compromise. Because and have true agreeability. Because when you not able to do that, then you're more disagreeable, and that's when you're more angry and unforgiving. Because I think another key point about agreeable people is they tend to be more forgiving.
For sure. I mean, because when you can agree on terms, when you can agree on things, you see it from more of a common ground. And so then you have more empathy and more space to be able to have more of a forgiving heart. When you feel like that there's an opposition there, like, as the young people say, my ops, right? When you feel that opposition, you feel like there's a constant battle between you and that person. So it's always like trying to win over your ideas to that person, or win over. And so it's never a space that you're going to allow yourself to have sympathy or empathy for that person. But I like what you said too, and I'm just thinking about how that took for me some work, some patience to be able to get to a place where like I'm taking a moment and really trying to see it from their perspective, like really trying to see where they might be coming from, because it's like you always are in a space where it's like your ideas or your point of view trumps what somebody else might be going through, and you don't know where their journey allowed them to frame this idea.
Exactly.
It might be something that is as small as a bad encounter that they may have had with somebody at work, or somebody at the grocery store pissed them off, and and rubbed them the wrong way, to the point where it framed them to feel some type of way where y'all are at a disagreeing point. But if you don't take the moment to really understand what led them to that idea or what led them to that perspective, you're gonna be stuck in your opinion on it.
Exactly. And then I think we will assume that people should understand things versus really having that dialogue. Like, why didn't they understand that? Why didn't they see that? And that's not just for me to say that, but that's for you're talking about the other individual,
Right.
in your connections, in your relationship, being able to understand this interpersonal interaction that goes back and forth, and what is my perspective, what is her perspective, you know, and walking in that space. So then you can compromise, then you can negotiate, so you can have a realistic sense of self. Because somebody say something to you, be like, man, they just don't get me, they just don't understand me.
Yeah.
But are you trying to really hear where they're coming from, seeing it from their point of view? And when you do that, it can make it so much easier for us to be agreeable and come up with things that we might actually might enjoy, that we didn't even know that we would enjoy.
Right.
So,
Let me ask you this: when you say negotiate, though, what do you mean by negotiate? Like, as far as like if you get this, I get that. Like, when you say negotiate, what do you mean by that?
So I think, like, in a relationship, you might have experiences where there might be something you want to do. Say, for instance, you're talking about a trip. All right. So what if she wants to go here, you want to do this, and y'all have different ideas, but there's only so much money, so many resources. So being able to talk about those different things in that experience, and what you gonna do.
Okay.
So I might want to go.
No, I feel you, because it kind of is bringing me up to, like, we trying to plan a cruise at the end of the year, right? For the family around Christmas time. And so me and my wife have kind of had different perspectives on the holiday season in general. And my idea was to go during Christmas, leave the whole Christmas tree and all that stuff behind, and be on vacation during that time frame. But we still have children and they're growing up, and her idea was that she didn't want them to lose that experience of Christmas still, especially for my youngest daughter. And so it's like she's hardcore on wanting to be in the city and experiencing the actual holiday. So we've been kind of bumping heads with whose side is going to win with that, and which way is going to go. But I think, we've been trying to negotiate, as you were saying, like, negotiate a happy medium so that both of us could kind of get the experience. Because I'm telling you, man, I'm tired of buying all them Christmas presents, man. Like,
I feel you on that. I feel
it's just a waste of money, man. And I'm but she's feeling me. But I think it's something that we're gonna have to grow to. It can't be just a hard line where we just cut it dry. As they say, what's the term they say? Let it go cold turkey.
Cold turkey, yeah.
Yeah, let it go cold turkey. But we're gonna have to grow to that.
Yeah, I think that's important. Sometimes when people hear the word negotiate, I think they tend to look at it in a negative sense or business sense. Not necessarily negative, but in a business sense.
Yeah.
But life is all about negotiating terms, and it's about an exchange. When we think about getting our way and working with someone, the reason why we might be willing to negotiate, or the reason why we might be willing to be flexible in any situation, it might be because ultimately these experiences work for us. Like this experience or this interaction is good for us, and we see it as being ultimately a positive thing.
Right.
Versus, or when somebody's has a vampirish nature, there's really no agreeableness, there's really no negotiation, there's antagonism, there's this need to have control. And and so you can't negotiate, or it's like intimidations and threats in order for things to work. And I oftentimes tell people, if I gotta be threatening people, if I gotta be like making people do something, I don't feel good about that. And I don't want to be in those spaces. I'd rather be in a space where we can compromise, we can negotiate, because I know that we're not always gonna think the same.
Right.
But at least, if you're willfully trying to engage in this situation, then I know it's coming from a sincere place.
Right. Yeah, that when you said control, right, that triggered a thought, because it's like one of my wife's favorite lines is, "You're not the boss of me." Right?
Right.
She'll love saying that, because I think sometimes when I'm interjecting my opinion on how things should flow, it might come off as like I'm trying to control the whole situation. And sometimes I feel the same related to her, right? The control piece. But I think that's like a perspective that people look at it from, like either they are willing to be controlled or willing to flow with a form of leadership, or they have that just resistance to it, where it's just like, you're not going to control me. I'm going to be opposing of your ideas just because I think you're trying to control this situation.
Right. And one of the things I like to say about control, when people, and this is in general when I say this, when people are ultra sensitive to being controlled, they may need to ask themselves a question about their own desire and drive to be in control. Because they may be projecting their feeling and need to control. So I think when we are agreeable, there's this sense of flexibility where we're not always focusing on being in control. We're focused on like working together. In relationships, I think it's critical for people to understand that when you enter into a relationship, you're giving up some level of control because you believe that in this relationship, the experience will be better than it would be if it was just a individual thing. So one of the things I like to ask people, are you willing to kind of, in a sense, allow yourself to be in a space where you don't always have control and you're not concerned about it?
Yeah.
If you're always concerned about having control, then that's something you need to examine and explore why you're in that space, because it can lead to more disagreement in relationships. And depending on how we've been raised, our cultural experiences, we might think that we need to always have control, or we might not trust that I can give up control to someone else and allow them to, be a little bit more in charge of what's going on in the league.
Yeah, because especially from a male perspective, right? Because we've been taught about, especially, I guess just men in general look at, and I believe that men should have a form of leadership, from the protection, from the providing standpoint, but not just total autonomy of the relationship where your partner doesn't have ideas that they bring to the table and things that you can follow their lead behind. And it made me think about early in our couples therapy that we had that kind of shifted my perspective on the control piece, was when they kind of framed it from a sports analogy, right? And me being a former athlete, I got it. Like, it's like when you're trying to win, right? When you're trying to win in a team sport, it really doesn't matter who puts up what stats, who's the leading scorer in the time frame, as long as you get the win.
Exactly.
If you get the win, it doesn't matter who got this many assists or this many buckets. Did you get the win?
Right.
Did it matter, who did the dishes or who cooked tonight? Did y'all eat? Did the laundry get done? You won,
Right.
And so that kind of shifted my perspective on, you know, the control piece or just who's doing what, as long as the goal is accomplished of winning. It helped, you know, frame a better way to maneuver in a relationship.
Yeah, so because you became open to this new way of looking at it, and you got out of all these stereotypical male female perspectives and roles.
The roles.
So
right.
you was able to live in this like different space and not see a win is a win. So if she did something and she was good at it and it helped y'all, then you allowed that to happen. It wasn't like, well, hey, because I'm the dude, I got to be doing that. Or
no doubt. Even though my wife is never going to take out the trash or cut the grass, she ain't doing no outside work. Inside work, we can come to a happy medium with. But on the outside things, there's certain roles that she said, you going to be the man and take out the garbage every time, and you going to cut the grass and do all the yard work type stuff. So, you know, I'm willing to take on those roles.
You know what, man? I feel you on that. I have to second that. But you know what? One of the things I want to say about, you know, I oftentimes ask people is, do you believe this individual, or even friends, whatever, but do you believe this individual have your best interest in mind? Are they acting in a way that at the end of the day, even if you disagree with them, that they are actually trying to improve your territory, improve your space in life?
For sure.
And if you believe that, it makes it easier to give up control because you know that they're going to act in your best interest.
I agree.
But when you think people are not going to act in your best interest, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
it's hard to give up that control.
Yeah, no, that's a whole different perspective because then it's like you feel like the things that they're doing and saying is to belittle you or to make you less than or trying to hurt your ego, your pride, you know, trying to stunt your growth. And when you feel like that person is operating in that space in the relationship, is a whole different approach or feeling about agreeing with this person because you don't feel like they got your best interests at heart.
Exactly. So
that's a whole different dynamic from when you feel like they're doing, because sometimes it don't feel good when somebody is telling you to do something that you're not a willing participant or it is not in your natural habit to do. And so sometimes that feels like opposition. It feels like they causing you, but that's like the feeling of working out, right? Like it hurts at first, you know what I'm saying? It's difficult to get into that mode of it, of consistency of doing something that you're not used to doing. But when you get through it and you become consistent, you see how that helps you in the end, right?
Exactly. But at least, I mean, even though it wasn't something that you initially was, initially saw and agreed to, but once you was open to it, you was able to give up the control, work with it, and see, you know what, this is actually pretty good.
It's good for me. You know what I'm saying? It's helping me in the end.
Like trying to get
better.
Yeah, trying to get Watts to eat watermelon, right?
Oh man, this dude Watts, man. He'd rather eat some donuts than watermelon, y'all. We got to get them. We got to get them together, y'all.
We got to get them together.
Got to get them together.
So when I'm thinking about agreeableness, man, I think it's a very important characteristic. A lot of times, I think guys, man, though, honestly, you know, I think I may have used this analogy before. We'd rather be hard like bricks versus be flexible like rubber.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is when you throw a brick, what do you get?
You get hurt. If you know what I mean, but it might break.
It might break. That's right.
You gonna get hurt, but it's gonna break.
It's gonna break.
Yeah.
And that's the idea. We be so concerned about trying to control things and having things go our way and being that protector, that provider, and everything. And we can always come up with a rational reason to control things. I tell people that all the time. You can always come up with another reason to protect yourself. Man, shucks, man. People got they got bolt locks. They got door things up on their doors. They got alarm systems. They got cameras. Everything they can do to protect themselves. I mean, like,
state of fear, man. That's that fear thinking mentality in my opinion.
right. And then you know, like the helicopter parent, you know, just and they can come up with every rationale why they need to do all these things for their kid.
Yeah.
You know, we do that, protect ourselves. You know, every time we walk outside of the house, man. Oh, I got to have my sunscreen on. Like, and the crazy thing is. You don't even get no vitamin D. So you need the vitamin D.
Do the sunscreen stop vitamin D?
Yeah,
it blocks it?
It blocks vitamin D.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So there's a certain amount of time you need to be out in the sun without vitamin D on. I read this article one time that was like when people go to the beach, they would get the vitamin D they need, but most people when they go to the beach, they have a bunch of sunscreen on, so they don't get.
I didn't know it totally blocks it or it stops the vitamins from hitting your blood like that. But
Man.
That's deep. I didn't know that.
Like, but we
learn something new every day, yo.
Yeah, you learn something new every day. We so busy trying to protect ourselves from something that and it ends up harming us in the long run.
Yeah.
Because we didn't need that level of control. So that's when control becomes like a crazy thing, and we have to learn how to allow ourselves to kind of be in this space where we don't have to have control. Allow ourselves to kind of just be in the moment. Yeah. And I think that's why a lot of people end up getting anxiety and developing depression, and it's because we don't know how to be in a space where we don't have control, and we're trying to always manage everything. No matter how much we manage things, no matter how much we take care of our business, we're constantly doing that all the time. So we never really have any free time.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. Another thing I want to address as we close this one out, though, is understanding when we are too agreeable. Obviously, being agreeable, we need to be open. We need to be empathetic, and we need to be kind and polite. We need to be a person who's want to have the dialogue and discussion, and we need to role model these things. But there's sometimes when we are too agreeable and it becomes unhealthy. And I think it's important for us to understand those things. Obviously, when there's physical abuse, when there's emotional abuse, when we being isolated, when people are trying to take us for our resources and our goods, but they're disagreeable and they're not trying to work with us. We need to understand, seriously, man, how not to let the vampires come in.
What's the one song you call with the songs? Is it Bill Withers? Until they use you up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? People will use you to the point where they'll use you up. You know, like where they'll take your kindness for weakness. And, you know, I've been somewhat a victim of that over the years where, you know, because I have a somewhat of a giving spirit and a willingness to do for others, you know, it gets to a point where, man, the only time you getting that phone call from folks is when they need you to do something. They don't give you the call just to check on you and see how you're doing, how your well-being is, but they know that your line is going to be open for service. You know, they call you, you going to be that reliable person that's always going to be there to move some furniture, to rake the leaves, whatever it is that they need you to do, you going to be the one. And always agreeing to doing it. Sometimes you have to put yourself in priority and be like, nah, I'm not going to do it today. I mean, when it's reasonable.
Right. You know what? I think that in life, one thing I've learned is I have friends, and then I like to call them, you have friends who they're truly friends because they reach out to you, they check on you, and they don't necessarily want nothing.
Yeah.
But if they ever call you and need something, boom, because they seem to be there regardless, I'm going to do what I can do for them because, I mean, I love them. I feel like they love me, you know, people. But, and then there's other people, they only reach out to you when they, what's up, G, man? How you doing, man? When they need something. And after a while, you just notice that pattern. And it's like, dang, you know, you never even called to check on me. Even though it might just be, look, I'm just checking on you. It may not even mean like they got all that to talk about.
Yeah.
But you was just on my mind.
For sure, man. I got a homeboy, and it's my dude, man. I love him, man. But there's a aspect of him that's a user, and every year our birthdays are about 5 days apart, and every year his birthday comes before mine. Every year for around his birthday, I'm a barber, so I can be cutting his hair. Hey man, what's up, man? It's my birthday, man. Let me get the birthday cut. And I look out for him because that's my dude. But when my birthday come, 5 days later, bro, where my birthday stuff at, man? Like, never does he have anything for me for my birthday, but he's always expecting something for his. And I don't know, just because he's younger than me, he's expecting that I'm always supposed to look out for him like that. But it's, bro, what friendships and relationships are, give and take,
Right, exactly.
I give you something, you give me back something,
Exactly.
just to keep it, the love equal,
It's an exchange,
it's
right?
An exchange. Even exchange.
Yeah, we call it reciprocity.
Reciprocity,
man. It's an exchange. You shouldn't just be doing, and you try to judge and have experiences where you feel like people value you and you are important, not just when they need something from you.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, ultimately, we gonna close this one out. When people are agreeable, they pour into you as much as they take away. And it may not always be the same way, but emotionally, physically, spiritually, in some way, they trying to pour into you. It's not like an empty emotional bank account where they just taking from you and then they're not giving. If you are the provider, maybe your significant other is not the one who can provide for you physically the way you can provide for them, but emotionally, spiritually, they might be there 100 for you. If you get sick, they gonna be there for you.
Yeah.
And that's how you want to feel.
For sure.
And that's why I think being agreeable is such an important quality, because it requires us to be able to go beyond ourselves to look at and be concerned and put effort into the needs of others.
Right.
Man, anything else you want to say on this, man?
Yeah, just don't be a taker all the time, man. Be a giver,
Yeah.
and look to be the friend that you want somebody to be to you.
Exactly.
Or even in relationships.
Exactly, man. Because takers are bank robbers, right? Bad movie.
I ain't never see y'all. Yeah, that's Watts area, man. I don't know.
He's absent. He's in absentia. Yeah, we don't want to be takers, man. Listen, if y'all like this discussion, please like us, subscribe, and don't forget to put your comments in the comment section. Have a good one, and we will talk to you soon. Take care.